Hello, I'm Paul Pirello, and welcome to the Philly Factor. Well, today on our program, it is my pleasure to welcome screenwriter, actress, fight choreographer, filmmaker, and LaSalle graduate, Jillian Bullock, to our program. Jillian joins us to talk about her work and her most recent project, A Sense of Purpose, Fighting for Our Lives. That's her new movie. She's here to talk about her new movie, but her life could pretty much be a movie, given everything that she's been through. First of all, Jillian, I want to welcome you back to LaSalle and welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
You're a 1991 graduate
I am.
of LaSalle University.
Yes, communications.
Communication, and that is fantastic. And we always like to have homegrown talent on the program, but especially when it's a fellow explorer that could be here and talk about what I have seen so far in this trailer of your movie. What is a fascinating story. It's very impactful, very dramatic, and it's a story that we don't know or hear about all that much. So I want to get into that a little bit, but your whole backstory is interesting. As I said, you could make a movie. I know it would be uncomfortable to sort of sit down and write your own story, but
it's already written.
It's already written. You have a book that is out. That is
Got
correct.
the book.
We'll talk about that in a second too, about her book, but I want to give a little bit of your backstory, if I may. All right.
Sure.
So I went to your website.
Okay.
All right, and it says you went from Crack Street to Wall Street to Hollywood. You were homeless, a street thug, high school dropout, and teenage mother. You went on to get a college education. You're now author, professional speaker. Many would say you were a victim of your own circumstances, where you went from victim to victor.
Right.
That is quite an impressive bookend, if you will.
And that's just the short version.
That's the short version, yeah, because we only have like 30
Right,
minutes here.
right.
But you went from Crack Street to Wall Street to Hollywood.
Right.
So give us a little bit about your backstory.
Real quick, my backstory is I grew up with my mother and siblings and my stepfather. My stepfather was a white man who was actually in the Italian mafia. And I grew up with him since I was 2 years old. He raised me up, taught me everything about the mob life. Yes, I witnessed my first mob hit when I was 9. And yeah, it was an interesting way to grow up.
Yeah, for sure. And yet you overcame what many people would say were tremendous hurdles and obstacles. Okay, you went on to get a college education, but here you were homeless at one time, and you have gone 360 degrees now with not only this movie we're going to talk about here, but some of your other projects as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was rough. I was homeless, and to survive, because I got addicted to drugs, and to survive the streets, I got into prostitution, and it was a way of the life of being on the streets. So,
what occurs then, Jillian, in your life that sort of turns your life around?
I got pregnant. I was 15, I got pregnant, and I knew I had to do something in order to not have a baby who would be a victim of what I was doing.
Sure.
So I got clean, and I fought to get off the streets, and I delivered my son, and I went back to high school, and I struggled. Obviously, I'm a teenage mother, don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I had to get help so I could stay off the drugs, and that was hard to do. And it was a real struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You document much of all of your challenges in your book,
Right.
Which is available, and we're going to bring up Jillian's website as well as the website for the movie that we're going to talk about here, so you can find out more information about her personally through her website, and you can order the book through the website to really learn about Jillian and what is a very inspiring story. And I don't care what anybody says, if the takeaway from this program is nothing but if Jillian can rise above all of these challenges and turn her life around, there might be somebody watching right now that may find themselves maybe in not such dramatic circumstances, but in similar circumstances, and that you might provide that inspiration for them to say, if she's able to turn her life around, then I might be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, I hope so. That's what I go and speak about as a professional speaker.
Yeah.
It's empowering yourself to transform from a victim to a victor. And how do you do that? How do you make the steps to turn your life around? And my life was one of the most dramatic changes.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I go out and speak about. So.
Let's talk about your movie, because I said I saw the trailer, and it is quite a remarkable story. It's called, the name of the movie is A Sense of Purpose, fighting for our lives. And you get into the very topical subject matter of post-traumatic stress disorder. And we often think of this when it relates to our military, and your movie actually has this background based in the military. So let's talk a little bit about your movie. So what made you decide this was, and you've done other movies and have done other projects, but what made you decide at this point in time this was the topic that you wanted to tackle?
Well, I was watching a Sports with Brian Gumble one day, and he had a story on there. He was interviewing a guy who's a veteran, who's a mixed martial arts fighter. He had opened a school to help other vets who were dealing with PTSD, and he used mixed martial arts to do it. So I'm a mixed martial arts fighter, so I was like, oh, that would be a fantastic story to do. So as I started doing the research and interviewing people, I realized that people don't realize that a lot of our military, thousands of our military, had PTSD as not as a result of combat, but as a result of being sexually assaulted. And I didn't know that. So when I started digging and researching, I'm like, okay, I had to change focus. This was a way more important story to write and to tell. And that's what I did. So yeah, it took me 3 years to do research and do the script, to get the script together.
How agreeable were some of the veterans that may have suffered at the hands of this abuse? How amenable were they to help you in your mission to write the story with the ultimate goal to make a movie out of it?
Some people didn't want to, of course. It's still a very painful subject for a lot, but then a lot were. And they were allowed to, I was allowed to, the movie is inspired by true stories. So it's not based on one certain person's life. It's like a combination of people. But a lot of people were, because they felt it was such an important story. They want their story to be told. There's not enough being told about it, not enough being done about it through politics and through military channels. They're not helping our military people, our veterans. So the way you can also always do that is through writing and through movies to educate and entertain at the same time.
Sure, yeah. You mentioned that oftentimes when we think of post-traumatic stress disorder, we think of that soldier, male and female, that are on the battlefield and they are having bullets whiz by their head, or they're seeing the carnage
of death around them all
absolutely.
the time.
So we see that part of it, and that I hate to use the word accepted, but that seems to be common knowledge. We see that on the evening news, or we're hearing about that on the radio or reading about it in the paper. This other chapter is not so widely discussed because of the sensitive nature. And even in watching the trailer, I was kind of shocked because I didn't think that the story was going to go the way that it ultimately turns out. And I'm only watching a trailer, and I'm intrigued and waiting for the entire movie.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
So you've done your job in whetting the appetite of the audience and wanting to really see this when it's going to be released. But was there any apprehension on your part to feel that this was too sensitive a matter or too controversial a matter to bring to the public's attention?
Well, when people see you think the trailer is something, the movie is going to be controversial, and it's okay because it's going to get people to talk. And that's what I want as a filmmaker. I want people to learn what they didn't know, and I want people to be angry. They should be. Our men and women go overseas or even right here in the United States, and they're protecting our country. And this is the treatment that they get, and they don't get the help and the support that they deserve. So someone has to address that. So this is just one way to do that.
Yeah. And the other thing that I learned prior to our show is that you've actually been invited by some veterans groups to come and talk about not only your movie, but I guess the whole issue, because there are veterans today that are out there, and we're not just talking about veterans of current conflicts, but maybe have gone back as far as the Vietnam War, if you will, and the Gulf Wars that we had back in the 80s and the 90s. But they may be living with this disorder, and maybe your movie, or at least the discussion that is sparked as a result of your movie, might be able to help them, because we often hear of the dramatic ending to many of these stories where these veterans feel abandoned, left alone. They sleep with the gun under their bed or they're
Yep.
under their pillow at
Yep.
night. And when they feel that all hope is lost, they really don't see any way out.
Right. 22 veterans die each day
Wow,
from suicide.
from suicide.
Yep.
And because they just didn't know where to turn for help.
You're right. They don't. It's just, it's a bigger thing than just this movie, and I realize that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little small piece of the bigger picture and a bigger problem, but it is a problem, and it's not being addressed the way it should be addressed. So, again, like I said, this movie will be controversial, but if that gets people talking and that gets people to say, wait a minute, we need to, change our way of thinking,
Sure.
then I've done my job as a filmmaker.
Yeah. You also mentioned that you also have to worry about going to speak to some of these veterans groups, and that you can't necessarily show the trailer or even the movie because you don't want something that could spark a memory or cause a feeling that they may have compartmentalized many years ago. You don't want that to necessarily bubble up to the top.
Well, we're going to be allowed to show the trailer and some clips from the movie.
Okay.
Most veterans group, they don't want us to show the whole movie.
Right.
Some people it's still fresh, and they haven't worked through the issues yet, so they could be triggered. That's the word they use, triggered. And that wouldn't be a good thing,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
So we're being respectful of what they want, and if they say we only want certain clips, the more dramatic clips, we will not show, to be sensitive to their needs.
As a filmmaker, you shot this movie in the Philadelphia area, and I think
did.
that says a lot about you and your commitment to keeping it local, if
Yes.
you will. So what was it like for you? You come up with the idea, you write the story,
Right.
And now it's time for production.
Right.
How intimately are you involved in scouting the locations? Now, you're an independent filmmaker, so I probably
do
know
it
the
all.
answer to this. Yeah, I was
Do
going to
it
say,
all.
I know what the answer is to this. But and even casting, I mean, how did you
Everything.
find, how did you find the actors?
We had auditions for a lot of the actors. Two of the actors, our lead actors, I already knew Tamara Woods. She plays the female in the movie who's been sexually assaulted by her commanding officer. I already knew her, so I didn't have to audition her. I already knew
Sure.
her work.
Yeah.
The lead male who plays the commanding officer, who's the rapist, John Quinlan, I already knew him, so I didn't have to audition him.
Right.
But everybody else had to be auditioned. So we held auditions, and we had a big turnout. And then my producers came. My DP, Lamont Fountain, he came there and he videotaped everything so we could look back at
Right.
everything. And then a good friend of mine, Karen Vicks, she's an actress and a producer, and she's a acting coach. She came to help us, pick, because she has that great eye for talent. So yeah, it was a very good turnout, and we got some good talent from Philadelphia.
Yeah. In making a movie, a lot of people on television, they watch and they say, "Oh, that looks so easy to do." I know it's not all that easy, but what was the whole experience like for you to not only make the movie, but to tackle such a important yet sensitive topic?
It's very different from anything I've done, because again, I have to deal with so many different components.
Yep.
Because I wear so many hats. I also have to speak about it, which I didn't have to do with any other project because
Right.
it wasn't that type of movie.
Right.
But this is a very sensitive topic. It's a very important topic. So I have to now play like an advocate for veterans. I'm a veteran, so it's important to me to try to get the story right. And it's a lot of work. It is. It's a lot of work, but I don't sleep much. So, but it's in the end, it's going to be a payoff. In the end, it's going to pay off.
So we should mention where the production stands right now. You're in post-production.
I am in post-production.
And so the most important part comes, you have this film, you're going out and speaking to veterans groups. Now comes time for the road trip, if you will, because you take the show on the road and go to all these film festivals, right?
We are taking it on the road.
So how does a filmmaker like yourself, Jillian, get into these competitions? Because that's really what they become.
Right.
And it's not just for bragging rights, although that's important, but it's to perhaps get the eye of a bigger company to help.
Distribution company,
Distribution company, yeah.
Well, we're entering into a lot of different festivals. That's what every filmmaker does.
Sure.
Our film is, like I said, is already different. It's already generating a lot of buzz already because of the nature of the film
Right.
and because of the support of a lot of veterans groups. So it's already, I've had a couple of distribution companies already come and ask to see the movie. I'm like, it's not even filmed yet. It's not even finished being edited. And they're already interested in distributing it based on the trailer. And we have a 7-minute clip also on YouTube, and they watched that, and they were like, "Wow, we really want to be a part of this." We don't want. We're excited, of course, but we don't want to rush it. We want to try to get the best deal possible. So we're going to hit all the festivals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you sit back now and you're in post-production and you're piecing it all together,
Right.
and many people would say that this is perhaps the most challenging part of movie making because you may not be able to go back and retake the scene, or your lead actor now is working in France on another project and you can't get him back to...
No, my people were instructed that you can't do anything else until we are exactly finished this movie. And I have brought them back.
Oh, really?
My
Yeah.
lead actors come back all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Because sometimes we do miss things, and we just look at the footage. Like my editor, my DP and my editor is Lamont Fountain, like I said, and we'll look at the footage or something. I'm like, oh, we need to do a retake. In fact, we're doing a retake this weekend because
really?
we saw something we're like, oh, that's not right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just part of it, especially being an independent
Yeah.
filmmaker, that you don't always see everything. And my lead actors, like I said, Tamara and John, they're great. They come back and they do the scenes that they need to do, and I do appreciate that because I know it's their time and their energy to come back. Especially John, he lives in Boston, so you know.
Yeah.
But it's all a part of it. They're lead actors. They know what they have to do. So.
And the other thing that I like is that, and most independent filmmakers have told me that making a movie when you're an independent filmmaker is you're really able to make the movie that you want to make,
Right.
and not necessarily the movie that the studio wants you to make. Because
Right.
many times they may say, no, Jillian, sorry, you can't take that. You
Yeah.
can't go back and do that over again. I need this by April 1st. And
Right.
you're under the gun, under pressure
Right.
to get it done. But independent filmmakers are able to breathe. It's more of an organic process for them
Right.
because they have that liberty and freedom to
Yeah.
do exactly what they want to do.
Yes, I mean, I love being an independent filmmaker. I would never, I won't say never, but I probably would never work for a studio that way.
Right, right.
Because you don't have the control. They tell you everything you can and can't do, you
Yeah.
know. But when you do it independently, when you go to the film festivals, they buy your film as is.
Right,
The
right.
way they see it is what you get,
Sure.
and they just do the marketing and get it out.
Yeah.
So that I like it that way.
Yeah. So, when you were a student here at LaSalle, did you envision that you would be a filmmaker? You know, that you would be tackling such tough and rough topics that you have tackled in your book, your story, a movie like this. So, oftentimes when you're sitting in a classroom, the reality of life doesn't really set in, although in your case, the reality of life did set in on you at a young age. But
Right.
did you know back in 1991 when you were getting ready to graduate that this is what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I knew this. Even though I was not sure, because at the time I was going to LaSalle, I was also a reporter for the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
So that's a great career,
Yeah.
being a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. But film was a love of my stepfather's, who was, like I said, in the mob. He always took me to the movies every Sunday, and said, one day you're going to be a filmmaker.
Wow.
And work with the greats. And his favorite actor was Robert De Niro, so he took me to see Mean Streets and everything and stuff like that. So, and then I got an internship when I graduated. Bill Wine,
Yeah.
he wrote me the letter of recommendation,
Yeah.
and I got an internship on Malcolm X with Spike Lee's company. So that was the start.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you, and you probably come across many, many different stories on a daily basis, and you look at something and maybe it's just a newspaper article, or maybe it's something out of real life that a neighbor or someone says, "Hey, Jillian, take a look at this. Is there? You think there's anything here?" What attracts your eye when it comes to perhaps future projects down the road? What stories do you find compelling?
Usually people who are damaged, because that's my life. You know, I can relate to that. I can understand that. And there are a lot of millions of people who are like that, and they really, again, don't have an advocate to tell their stories. So if they're dealing with teenage pregnancy or mental health issues or homelessness or domestic violence or whatever, you know, you can make entertaining movies that are still educational.
Sure.
And that's what I do, because to me that's important, to tell the underdog story that doesn't get told all the time. And you know.
Two questions, one of which is, what type of advice can you give to other communication majors, whether they're interested in radio, television, film, public relations, whatever it is, people you know, not only that go to LaSalle, but any school for that matter, whether they're in middle school, grade school, high school, college, what type of advice can you give them? Because look, you and I have walked in those shoes before, in that we know what it's like getting ready to graduate and not knowing where life's going to take us next. You know? So what do you tell them?
Well, for me, I think the most important thing is obviously to follow your dreams, regardless of the naysayers. And because let me tell you how many people said I could never be a filmmaker, so that was that. So, but get a mentor. I think that is key. My mentor was the bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal. When I first came to the Wall Street Journal, I don't even understand why he chose me to have an internship at the Wall Street Journal. I was like fresh off the streets and just had graduated from high school, and I wrote him a letter. I wrote all the newspapers, asking the editors, can I get an internship? And all of them turned me down, but Frank Allen from the Wall Street Journal. He said he saw something in me, even though my letter was horrible. He said your English is horrible, and I'm a high school graduate.
Right.
But he stuck in there with me, and I was there for like 3 years before I actually could write the first article, because the standard of the Wall Street Journal was up here. And I had to be up there as far as a writer. And he groomed me the whole way. He taught me how to speak. He taught me how to dress. He taught me how to interview people. And it was a fantastic learning experience. I wouldn't have made it nearly as far as I did if it wasn't for a mentor. So I think everyone should have a mentor.
And sometimes people will say, well, where do I find a mentor? I mean, it's not like I could go to the phone book, if we even use phone books today, and say, all right, let me go under M and find mentor. I mean, it's not that easy.
It's easier.
It's easier.
Because you got the internet now.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a newspaper like I did, you write all the editors like I did. You say, you know, a little bit about your background and what you want to do in life. And if you want to be in TV, the same way. You find, so many people are willing to give back because they've been in the same spot. It's much easier now than it was when I was doing that.
Yeah. Needless to say, when I got started too. That was back in the dinosaur era. Only kidding. Almost. In the few minutes that we have left, and we could go on and talk for another hour about your career and all of your great work. What do you hope people take away from your movie when they get the chance to see A Sense of Purpose? What do you hope they take away from it?
I hope they look at veterans differently now, and I hope they understand that these are people that, you know, go out there, go overseas, like not 1, 2, 3, you know, they're deployed a lot of times, and they see, not only do they see such terrible things, but can you imagine having to be over in a foreign land and be there trying to fight for your country, being sexually assaulted and can't come home? You're stuck there with the abuser who's right there with you. That has got to be bone chilling, you know. So to me, I hope people will start looking at veterans different, get involved, write to congressmen, get more involved in veterans organizations to try to help anybody that deals with PTSD, whether it's from military sexual assault or it's from combat or whatever. It's just they're not getting the proper respect that they deserve, and I hope my film, you know, helps people in that way.
I want to mention your website. I know we have put it up on the screen a number of times, but if, for instance, there is a group that would be interested in having you come out, and I don't want to make you any busier than you are, or I don't want to make you more busier than, pardon my incorrect grammar there. I'm sure someone will correct me at some point. Hey, I'm on radio, these things that happen. But they could go to jbullockenterprises.com if they want to get in touch with you and maybe invite you to come to a group, not only to talk about your movie, but maybe even to talk to, you know, high school students or you know, even college students who may be looking for that footing to get started in this world of filmmaking or writing or whatever it is, because sometimes you could provide that spark to someone sitting in a classroom saying, gee, I wish I could write,
Right.
but I don't know where to go or where to turn.
Right.
So they could go through your website to get in touch with you?
They sure can. I mean, like I said, everybody needs a little help. Everybody needs a mentor, and I'm not, closed to that.
Sure.
I try to help as many people as I possibly can. Is where I've come from. Other than Frank Allen, no one else really helped me. I had to try to fight it for myself. Go back to school, kick the drugs, and all that. I did that all by myself.
Yeah.
In order to help my son, who I had, and so he could be a good product of life and society, which
Sure.
he is today. Thank God.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. I know you're busy putting this all together. Any other project down the road that you already are looking at?
Yeah, we're in development of a new movie called A Cup Full of Crazy. It's a psychological thriller. It does deal with mental health issues and stuff like that, but it's a lot of twists and turns in it. That again will keep people riveted and on the edge of their seats.
Well, we look forward
love it.
to that, and we'll have you back to talk about
Okay.
that. Continued success with this project.
Thank you.
All the best. And again, you could go to Jillian's website. You could also go to the movie's website to find out more information about the movie, and go to Jillian's website to find out more about her. I want to thank Jillian for being with us here on this edition of the Philly Factor. Until next time, thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul Pirillo, and you're always welcome to the Philly Factor.